Seguimos en el Mobile World Congress 2014 haciendo la cobertura y en este caso vamos a estar hablando de LTE y LTE-Advanced y algunas tecnologías que lo acompañan en inglés con Paul y Peter, que son de la empresa Qualcomm y JDSU. Vamos a cambiar al inglés para darles la bienvenida. Paul, Peter, welcome to Desmenuzando.com.
Peter Paul.
Peter Paul.
Thank you. Sorry for that.
PP here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
The idea for this panel is for you to tell us a little bit on LTE and LTE-Advanced, which is probably one of the main topics at this event. So the first question for you would be, essentially, many operators are saying we don't want more speed and capacity, we just want to make sure LTE is a proper business model. So how can you tell us about that with the next releases of LTE? How can operators get not just more speed and capacity, but a better, sounder business model? Do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. One of the things that carriers are dealing with, which is driving standards evolution, is this massive increase in data traffic, and driven largely by video. And to ensure video experience, you need to address both the opportunity for common content. This is live content that's shared by many people simultaneously, which is being now addressed through eMBMS or LTE broadcast, as well as the unicast content, where every user is trying to get unique content, YouTube videos and other things that are essentially driving most of the traffic growth. So the path down LTE Advanced going to carrier aggregation, which is really the first step in LTE Advanced, going up to Cat 6 data rates. We just announced our first Cat 6 product back in November, and we're doing live demos here at the show, is all about handling this massive increase in data traffic in the unicast domain. So making networks more efficient, making the user experience much better for unicast content. LTE broadcast actually takes a slightly different approach, and anywhere you have common content, it's not just live video, for example. It could be OS updates that need to be pushed to many people simultaneously. Anytime you have this one-to-many content distribution, LTE broadcast is by far the most efficient way to deliver that content. But better yet, when we talk about user experience and something that an operator can monetize, LTE broadcast actually utilizes synchronous transmissions from multiple base stations, delivering the same content so that users combine those signals in the broadcast zones, receiving these multiple copies of the signal. They combine together in a way that creates a stronger signal at the edge of the cell. Therefore, you can support a better grade of video, HD quality video at the edge of the cell when you have one bar on your device, for example. And so carriers can only sell the quality that they can deliver at the cell edge, deep in a building where you have the weakest signal. And that's the problem that LTE broadcast solves. Okay.
Going back to the original question, how do we make LTE a sounder business model and not just a technology that provides speed and capacity that we've seen that users just eat that, and OTT providers actually benefit from?
Right. Yeah, and I mean, LTE's at a different maturity in lots of different places around the world. But there's one constant, which is the app, right? So the app is the customer touch point into the network. And to make a good business model, you need to be able to support application-centric and customer-centric management and optimization, I think, right the way through the life cycle. And that can be through from pre-deployment testing in the lab to make sure things work and interoperate. I know that the standards are pretty well in place, but you still have to have a very clear test methodology before you deploy, before customers start using a technology. And then I think what you need to look at is the kind of cost and operational budget around network turn-up. So that's the operational expenditure. It can be a more complex environment. An E node B is a more complex node than a node B. You've got to think about handoffs, you've got to think about if I'm deploying Volte, for example, how does that hand off to 3G, etc. So I think you have to think about the kind of costs associated with turning up your network and then monitoring and managing it. Because the scale of the data services is now such that you can't use the same tools and capabilities used before, because the whole dimensions are very different. So to make it, I think, a clearer business model, you need to be able to manage that with a particular cost infrastructure, and then determine how do you as an operator differentiate yourself through services and applications compared to another operator. You know, so it isn't just about bandwidth.
But LTE is not, I mean, you mentioned the broadcasting technology that might help the operator find kind of a new business model, but beyond that, what other things can LTE do for the operator, just rather than increasing capacity and speed, so they can actually have, as you were saying, some applications that they control? Because at this point what's happening is that if they go to LTE-Advanced, WhatsApp, instead just of allowing you to send a video of 1 minute, it will allow you to send you a video of 5 minutes, or an HD video, and capacity will just, the minute it just comes in, it will go. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, that's a really good point. One of the hidden benefits of LTE-Advanced, carrier aggregation, being able to simultaneously receive on your device on 2 different carriers, is the network can actually do much better load balancing. So not every user is going to need the full 40 megahertz of bandwidth to 20 megahertz carriers. The network can do some very efficient scheduling to create much faster network response time. So even if you're just doing some web browsing or any application that don't require these very high data rates, but are very latency sensitive, like VoIP and other things, you will see a very big increase in the responsiveness of the network because of this scheduling efficiency, this load balancing. But you also mentioned unlocking new services, and that's the thing that really excites us most about LTE broadcast. So if you think of what happens during a news crisis, everybody wants the news at that time on their mobile device. This is a very different environment than existed years ago.
But that sounds a bit like live TV, mobile live TV, and probably if we were to do some sort of survey here, we've discussed mobile TV so many times at Mobile World Congress, and we haven't seen anything truly flourish. That if we based it on the concept that sounds like mobile TV, some people might say, oh, this is
well, how many people get news online now? I mean, it's a very common thing, and now you want it on your device, but during news crisis, the network gets blocked because everybody wants to download the same, and doing this on a one-to-one basis congests the network. Think of what happens in LTE broadcast now. An operator could set a threshold. When the traffic rises to that level, everybody's trying to pull the same content down. The network can switch automatically to broadcast, and now the network opens up. The operator has an opportunity now to sell sponsored content to these sites. Can you imagine now that all the sites will want to be the preferred site to get news? And so with a sponsored content deal, the carrier can actually direct you to the sites that maybe have paid for your connectivity, news sites during. So new business models can open up, mobile advertising, any kind of broadcast, public safety applications where multimedia information needs to be sent out on a very wide scale to many people all at once simultaneously. It's an infinite number of business possibilities. That's what really makes us excited about that. And the network costs are tremendously forward because you're only sending this data once. Hundreds of people in each sector can receive it simultaneously.
Do you agree with that? Or?
Yeah, I do. I mean, the thing is, I mean, this sounds obvious, right? But network operators are in such a unique position. They sit between the customer, the end user, and the service, right? So in terms of understanding you as a customer, they couldn't be in a better position. They know what services you do, they know what location you're in, they know who you call and who you contact. So, I mean, you know, to build a kind of profile to help understand.
So like analytics or big data?
Exactly, what sort of customer you are, how can I better serve you, what other applications might you want that, and then being able to kind of build that into, I mean, take Volte as an example, right? Very early stages at the moment, voice over LTE. But it's not just about voice, it's about voice plus. You know, so I want quick connection service, I want HD, I want to integrate that voice into social networking, messaging, all sorts of other things, video, right? So there's a capacity to build, you know, rich communication services around that, and not just to be competing with over the top, but to be, you know, working with them and integrating and maybe extending and you know, making it a better business model for you, so that it's not just a bit pipe, it's you know, you're a service provider, it's not just an operator. So I think those two things about being able to you know, provide analysis to retailers to help them understand what sort of customer you are to better promote things to you, better services, as well as being able to expand their own rich communication services.
Okay, excellent. Let me switch to another part of the technology in LTE. We were supposed to have Ericsson here also on this panel to discuss perhaps this area, but let me throw it on the table and see if you want to comment, which is Cloud RAN or centralized RAN, which is something that also is being discussed with LTE as something very useful because you are separating the baseband from the radio units and you can increase capacity in certain areas more effectively. I don't know if this is something that you envision as being key in the market, or is just key for mature markets?
Well, our view is that it's an architectural choice. Network architecture, probably something that Ericsson would certainly have a lot more thoughts on. From our perspective, there are a lot of technologies that are being brought into LTE Advanced that are causing this rethinking of architecture. So the fundamental innovations are really around comp, for example, and HetNet small cell deployments. And this is especially comp necessitating fiber deployments and laying the foundation for potentially this synchronous network that actually can be centralized in a Cloud RAN. So the two kind of go hand in hand, but Cloud RAN, in our view, is an architectural choice. It's an option.
But it's just a niche, luxury type of architecture for operators in Japan, Korea, US. That's it.
When you talk about architectural shifts, generally it takes a while before you can see how widely deployed these can be. If there are constraints like fiber and synchronous backhaul and those kinds of things. And even some of the concepts in LTE Advanced, higher order MIMO, comp deployments, you probably won't see them spread across the entire LTE footprint. Okay. The one thing that is common across LTE right now is the benefits of carrier aggregation. Because in most LTE networks today, you have more than one carrier deployed. And the benefits, as I pointed out, for carrier aggregation are not just the big data rates. We tend to focus on the big data rates, as you pointed out in your first question, but the real hidden benefits are the network efficiencies and the reduction in latency that really speak to the end user experience. And a lot of these technologies do even more to enhance the user experience. Comp, for example, the whole concept of soft handoff now comes back into the LTE picture.
But again, comp seems to be like far away, or also just for operators with fiber at this point.
Yeah. So as I said, there are certain constraints around some of these technologies that might limit at least the near-term footprint for those technologies. Okay. And certainly, the market is focused on carrier aggregation right now. Comp is one of the things next in line. EICIC, the interference cancellation capability, interference management. There have been some enhancements in standards that now make this more broadly applicable. We have some demos that show release 12 capabilities at our booth. So I think all these things have a great near-term promise. We're in field trials.
Anything on CRAN?
Yeah, I mean, the whole kind of HetNet, if I could just call it that, right, I think will prevail, right? And I think Peter's right in the sense that whether it's going to be, I'm going to deploy a small cell, I'm going to do DAS, I'm going to do Cloud RAN, I'm going to integrate with Wi-Fi. I think we'll see a lot more of that kind of combination, coming together, depending on what's important for the coverage and capacity requirements. And of course that does bring with it opportunities, but it brings some challenges, in terms of trying to kind of manage that, right? I mean, one of the things we see a lot with these sort of deployments is the kind of world of RF and fiber coming together. Where typically you would have had maybe kind of fiber in the back hall, RF in the front hall. Now that kind of thing's merging. So being able to kind of manage that capability, RF and fiber, in tools and integrated tools rather than having kind of three separate devices is becoming really important. And that of course brings in then the whole, I want to look at my front hall and back hall together because I need to turn up them at the same time. So I think it's got implications as well on deployment as well as tools and capabilities again to help keep that operational budget down. You can't spend the same amount of money deploying a small cell as you do a macro cell.
Yeah.
Right.
Obviously, that's the purpose of using a small cell.
Yeah. So you have to have tools that are relevant and capable and aligned for that, where you can go on, turn it up, get the birth certificate, move on, and you want some simple tools to be able to do that.
Okay, now that you brought the HetNet, the concept of the HetNet, and you brought Wi-Fi, I wanted to end the discussion with the LTE unlicensed spectrum and licensed spectrum and the usage of different bands to enhance the user experience actually.
Right.
And see if you think that operators, even though the promise of mixing licensed with unlicensed sounds like quite promising, at the end of the day we're talking about operators that usually only trust licensed spectrum.
Right.
So just tell me what you think are the trade-offs and how you are going to be able to convince operators that at some point in the future, due to the constraints they're going to face, unlicensed and licensed are going to have to be used. And that's it.
Yep. So obviously we made an announcement back in January about our support for unlicensed LTE. So in our mind, it's not just about the trust for licensed spectrum, it's about the trust of the back-end systems and the core network that delivers this end-to-end QoS, seamless mobility, and all the things that mobile carriers command a premium for. And what they've been trying to do is obviously augment the capacity needs in licensed spectrum with carrier Wi-Fi, using unlicensed spectrum on completely different systems that have different core networks, separate PDN gateways, and so it's really kind of a parallel universe. And you've seen this carrier Wi-Fi effort multiple stages to try to get to a converged core network, to try to get common back-end systems authentication. Unlicensed LTE actually shortcuts that whole process. It basically utilizes unlicensed spectrum in a way to augment capacity, but allows a carrier to utilize its entire infrastructure, including all the back-end business systems, which really solve a big business problem in terms of efficiencies. And also, if you start with release 10, there are certain markets where the regulatory environment is very conducive to utilizing carrier aggregation to simply aggregate an unlicensed band with an existing LTE carrier aggregation device. And augment that spectrum virtually immediately with existing
So
product.
no question that operators are going to be using it?
No question about it in our mind that carriers have already invested very heavily in Wi-Fi, both in terms of just Wi-Fi, standalone Wi-Fi deployments in sporting venues and other hotspots, but also carrier Wi-Fi investments, which might still continue. There are probably still some reasons to look at that path as well. But unlicensed LTE is one very good option, we believe.
Yeah, I think, I mean, at the end of the day, I think operators will evolve. And regardless of where they've come from, whether they've been mobile, whether they've been cable, whether they've been fixed, they're all going to evolve, and you'll see typical kind of fixed line operators getting spectrum, using hotspots. You'll see mobile operators using Wi-Fi, and I think, you know, because at the end of the day, they want to deliver an integrated service to you as a customer, regardless of where you are, what you're doing, whether you're at home, whether you're on the beach, whether you're in the office, you know. And so I think that they will all evolve towards a blend of technologies, capabilities, bands that's suitable for your particular environment and your service.
Even if it's unlicensed?
Even if it's unlicensed.
That's fine. Okay. Yeah. All right, let me get this right. Paul, Peter,
okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And have a good show.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.